Part 2, The Vision and the Victory. Constantine, 306-313 AD. Chapter 3, The Man Behind the Legend. Flavius Valerius Constantinus was born around 272 AD in the provincial city of Naissus, modern Niš in Serbia. His father was Constantius Chlorus, a career military officer who would eventually rise to the position of Western Caesar in Diocletian's tetrarchy. His mother was Helena, a woman of uncertain social background whom some ancient sources describe as a stabularia, an innkeeper or stable keeper, and whom later tradition would venerate as a saint and depict in royal purple. Whether Helena was ever formally married to Constantius or simply his common-law wife or concubine is disputed by historians. What is certain is that her son Constantine was recognized by his father, received an education at Diocletian's court, and was positioned, if he played his cards correctly, for a significant political future. Constantine's youth and young manhood were spent at the court of Diocletian in Nicomedia, not as an honored guest, but effectively as a political hostage, a guarantee of his father's loyalty. He was educated in the imperial capital, trained in rhetoric and administration, and exposed to the full complexity of late Roman religious life, the traditional Roman pantheon, the various mystery cults, the Christian community that was a significant presence even in the imperial household, and above all the solar theology of Sol Invictus that pervaded the court's religious self-presentation. He served in the military campaigns of Galerius in Persia and on the Danube. He witnessed the early stages of the Great Persecution. He was, by the time he was in his early 30s, a man of substantial military experience, considerable political sophistication, and a religious sensibility shaped by the syncretistic solar monotheism of the late Roman imperial court. In 305, Diocletian abdicated and his co-emperor Maximian abdicated with him. Constantius Chlorus, Constantine's father, became Augustus of the West, ruling Britain, Gaul, and Spain. Constantine joined him there, crossing the empire to reach his father's side, according to some accounts eluding Galerius's attempts to keep him in the east as a continued hostage. When Constantius died at York in Britain in July 306, his troops immediately and spontaneously proclaimed Constantine as their Augustus, a proclamation that began a 6-year political and military struggle during which Constantine would fight his way from the cold shores of northern Britain to the burning gates of Rome. Understanding Constantine's religious identity in these years, before the Battle of Milvian Bridge, is essential to understanding the Sunday Law. A panegyric delivered to Constantine around 310 AD, a formal speech of imperial praise composed by a court orator, describes Constantine experiencing a divine vision at a shrine in Gaul, a vision not of Christ, not of a cross, but of the god Apollo, the solar deity, accompanied by victory, offering the crowns of 30 years of imperial reign. Constantine is described as recognizing himself in the image of Apollo, as understanding himself to be, in some sense, the earthly embodiment of the solar deity. The vision is entirely within the framework of Roman solar paganism. There is nothing Christian about it. This vision of Apollo preceded the more famous alleged vision before the Battle of Milvian Bridge by approximately 2 years, and it reveals with considerable clarity what Constantine's religious consciousness looked like before 312. By 312 AD, the tetrarchic system had collapsed entirely into civil war. 4 men were simultaneously claiming imperial titles in various portions of the empire: Constantine in the west, Maxentius holding Rome itself, Licinius in the Balkans, and Maximinus Daia in the east. None of them intended to share power indefinitely. The next few years would determine who would rule the Roman world. It was, as every participant understood, a fight to the death. Constantine's decision in the spring of 312 to cross the Alps and march directly on Rome was audacious to the point of apparent recklessness. His army numbered perhaps 40,000 men. Maxentius commanded substantially larger forces and sat behind the nearly impregnable walls of Rome. The conventional military logic strongly favored the defensive posture. Constantine's campaign succeeded only because of the extraordinary speed of its execution, sweeping through northern Italy, winning rapid victories at Turin and at Verona, and because Maxentius made the catastrophically mistaken strategic decision to abandon his fortified position and march out to meet Constantine in the open field at the Milvian Bridge. Why Maxentius left Rome is a question ancient sources answer variously. An oracle, a prophecy, overconfidence, divine madness. What is historically uncontested is the outcome. On October 28, 312 AD, the forces of Maxentius met Constantine's army on the north bank of the Tiber near the Milvian Bridge. The battle was decided within hours. Constantine's cavalry shattered the opposing cavalry first. The infantry advanced. The soldiers of Maxentius, pushed back toward the Tiber, found themselves trapped between advancing enemies and the river. A temporary pontoon bridge constructed alongside the ancient stone bridge collapsed under the weight of panicking troops trying to cross it. Thousands drowned. Maxentius himself went under near the water's edge, pulled down by the weight of his armor. His body was recovered from the river the following day, decapitated, and his head mounted on a spear for the triumphal procession through Rome that followed. The night before that battle had contained something that Constantine would interpret as divine intervention. Two major ancient sources give us accounts of what he experienced, and they differ in significant ways that historians have been debating ever since. Lactantius, the Christian scholar who served as tutor to Constantine's son and was close to the events, wrote around 315 AD that Constantine received a dream command the night before the battle to mark his soldiers' shields with the Chi-Rho, the superimposed Greek letters that formed the monogram of Christ. The account is specific, modest, and internally plausible. Eusebius of Caesarea's account in his later Vita Constantini, allegedly based on the emperor's own sworn testimony, is far more dramatic. He describes Constantine and his entire army seeing a cross of blazing light above the sun in broad daylight, inscribed with the Greek words entautonika, by this, conquer. That night, Christ appeared to Constantine in a dream and repeated the instruction. The following morning, Constantine commissioned the labarum, the military standard bearing the Chi-Rho, and ordered his troops to mark their shields accordingly. The scholarly consensus tends toward Lactantius's more modest account as historically more reliable, though the question remains genuinely open. Some scholars have proposed that what Constantine and his army saw was a real atmospheric phenomenon, a solar halo, produced by ice crystals in the upper atmosphere, which can create cross-shaped patterns of light around the sun under certain conditions. This would explain why tens of thousands of soldiers reportedly saw something simultaneously, while still leaving room for Constantine's religious interpretation of a natural phenomenon as divine communication. Others accept a genuine divine encounter. Others see a story that grew substantially in the telling, shaped by the religious and political needs of the Constantinian court. What is not an historical dispute is what Constantine did. He fought under the Chi-Rho symbol, he won decisively, and from that victory forward his relationship to the Christian community changed fundamentally. He marched into Rome to a hero's welcome, refused to perform the traditional sacrifice at the Temple of Jupiter, a remarkable and conspicuous break with Roman victory ritual, and began immediately implementing policies favorable to the Church. Whether he was genuinely converted to Christianity, or whether he recognized in Christianity's organized institutional strength and growing popular support a tool for imperial unification more effective than the fractured pagan cults, or whether the truth lay somewhere between these poles. This is the essential question about which the historical record permits no definitive verdict.